Hello, everybody, and welcome back to IndieQuest, the celebration of the indie and obscure. My name is Josh, also known as Frantic or the Hype Man. I'm here with my co-host and charming guy here, Captain Drachma. How are you doing?
I'm doing swell. And funnily enough, we actually have a third guest host today. And it isn't Steve yet, but I am happy to introduce someone who is probably better known than both Josh and myself, even though he's never been on this podcast, but known by I was going to say by many names, but I think we only really know him by one name. The Burgerchamp. How are you doing, buddy?
Good. Good to be here.
Yeah, so we brought Burger on today because he beats everything and is a really good buddy of ours and enjoyer of many different kinds of games. And I know that the game that he brought today is a game that potentially wouldn't have gotten put on the quest log had Burger not brought it, because it is a very meaty game. I don't want to spoil too much, but we appreciate him for being here.
Yeah, I'm just excited to talk about the Indy 500.
So
There you go.
why don't you start us off about the Indy 500, Burger?
Well, it's the Indianapolis 500.
It's in Indianapolis.
That's it. It's in Indianapolis. They use Formula One cars for it.
Yep.
Oh, well, I wanted to mention at the top that it is like Summer Game Fest time. You know, all the stuff's being announced, and I know that we're going to talk about it next time. So I wanted to tell people that all the indie game announcements, if there's any indie game announcement that's talked about or shown in any of these 75,000 showcases, if there's anything that sticks out, we want to hear from you. So I want to do a little call to action. Send us an email, indiequestpod@gmail.com. Just tell us what your favorite announcement is for the summertime, because this next week is just literally back-to-back indie game showcases, the Wholesome Direct, Future Game Show, a bunch of stuff. So I think we're going to talk a lot about that next time. I know that this is the top of the show. We're kind of just chilling, but I wanted to get that out here right at the top so that people will have that at top of mind. So.
Feel free also, if anybody out there doesn't want to email or doesn't have an email in 2023, feel free to contact us via Twitter, and or you could throw a comment on the Polymedia Reddit after this episode goes live, and we could pull stuff from there too.
Yeah. Let's kind of have a chat, because there's going to, last year, I feel like it was just almost overwhelming, the amount of stuff that was talked about. And I bet a lot of those games didn't even come out in the year, you know how it is. But anyway, you want to just jump into talking about video games? I think that's the fun thing to do. That's the thing we do here at IndieQuest. We always bring an indie game to our ever-growing and ever-wonderful quest log. There's two sections to it, the main quest and the side quest. The main quest game is you can recommend this game to everybody and their mom. It's just with a bullet, you got to play this game. It's so fantastic. The side quest is, yes, this game's great. We recommend it. Every game we bring here, we do recommend. But there's a couple caveats, so just listen to the conversation. We'll tell you what the caveats are, and when you're in the mood for that game, it's definitely a recommended game, and you should check it out. I think I explained that pretty well. I think that's might be the best I've ever explained it.
That was wonderfully streamlined. I loved every bit of it, Josh, and I would not change it at all. But I think that will lead us right into actually talking about them, and I will go first today. I think we are going to do a literal burger, and Burger will be sandwiched in between myself and Josh's toasty buns. So,
My dream.
yeah, I know. I brought you on here to fulfill it. So, all right. So I was talking to my pals before we got going here that I was going to bring a different game, but I thought that I might not finish it. So I kind of pivoted at the last minute, the end of the race over the weekend. I ended up switching into a different game that had been recommended to me, one personally by someone, and then another person on Twitter that I trust. And I'll start with that person, actually. So we actually brought someone else on to do a little interview. Someone that goes by IDOZ, also known as Jamie Bateman, the creator of Archvale. And basically anything that Jamie says on Twitter is a good game or looks like a good game, I'm all over it because I love Archvale. I love everything that Jamie has put out, and he has very similar tastes to my own. The other person who recommended this game to me was none other than someone else we've had on, and that was Ross. So, without further ado, I am bringing a game called Bloody Hell to IndieQuest today. Have you guys heard of Bloody Hell?
I gotta look at it.
Bloody Hell on Steam here.
Only on Steam. So,
Only on Steam?
while you guys are taking a look, it is a top-down, bullet hell, twin-stick shooter that has, I would say, Metroidvania elements. So, you probably will notice that all those things, other than the Metroidvania part, sounds like another game that I like a lot. That being Enter the Gungeon or Archvale. Archvale is also very much in the same realm as kind of where this game comes from, right? It came out this year at the beginning of the year. The developer was pun intended, and like I said, it's only on PC currently. And I was going to save this for later, but I feel like I have to mention it now just in case there's anybody out there that's like, this isn't my kind of game. I'm just going to skip to Burger's section, right? Bloody Hell is free. 100% free.
I was seeing that. I was like, is it free for right now, or is it just free?
It's just free. It's just a free indie game. And there's a lot of them, right? Like you can get on your cell phone and play a game from probably a developer that doesn't have a lot of people that you could get for free. And then they have like gotcha tactics to get you to pay for things. But there's none of that here. It's just a free game. And I'm going to try not to give anything away early, but that should be some indication to anybody out there that if you have a PC that can run the most basic games, because it's not a super complex game graphically, you should give this one a try. I will say it right now because
Steam Deck playable too.
Steam Deck.
There you go. Yep.
Played very well. It says, I always get a little weary of any Steam games that say partial controller support, but I played with the controller and it had all the button prompts. It was completely fine. So I don't even know why it says that. But anyway, that will move us into gameplay. You play as an angel or like a bird, dove, eagle thing is kind of what I have no idea. It's extremely, it's a pixel game, so you just kind of have to assume. And I would say it makes sense that it would be some form of dove because you're an angel that is doing God's deeds. And I'll get into that more later, but it would make sense that you're a dove. Your name is Azrael. I kind of already explained this, but you shoot bullets from your halo. You can get permanent upgrades such as dashes and grapples. And you can also get a beam for breaking rocks that are in your way. Very Metroidvania-y, right? You can collect blood vials that have equipable power-ups. So there, like I just mentioned, there are upgrades that are purely for traversal and like some battling. But then there's also upgrades that make Az more powerful as you go through. Azrael's nickname is Az. You have like a little buddy that you see fairly often as you go through the story that calls you Az all the time. But the cool thing about these types of upgrades are they'll do things like give you a spread shot or make it so your bullets shoot faster or make Az walk faster. But you equip them via like a grid. So there are some other games that do this, and none of them come to mind immediately. But imagine a grid, like a 3x3 grid, and you can fit like Tetris pieces into it. Each blood vial with the power-up fits into so many of those blocks, and they all have like different Tetris piece looking forms, right? So the more powerful blood vials have more pieces and are more awkwardly shaped, so that they take up more room in the grid. The nice thing is that if you don't put things in the grid correctly the first time, you can move them, you can take them out and replace them, and you also get extra grid spaces as you go through the game. You can find them in the world and equip them at an alchemy table when you're traversing. So pretty neat from that aspect. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed kind of swapping things in and out and just going and playing with it for a little bit and see what happens, right?
Is this a difficult game? Because the first review here on Steam is recommended. I can't beat it. That's what the review says. So
I know,
is
I saw
it
that
difficult?
one too. I would say on the scale of 1 to Gungeon, it's about maybe a 5 or a 6. I don't think it's incredibly hard, but a lot of that could be the fact that I like to play these kinds of games, right? So I'm a little biased there. And then also, it's not a roguelite. I was going to get to that a little bit later, but it's not a roguelite. And like Archvale, I think that automatically makes it more accessible to more people, right? You don't feel the burden of dying and restarting. If you die, you go back to, there's these crosses that you can save at that are like your spawn point that takes you between heaven and hell. And you just save at that cross. When you die, you start back at that cross. And I'm pretty confident every single boss that I fought had a cross right next to it. So if you're going to die, you're probably going to die at a boss. There are some enemy hordes that are pretty tough, but usually those have crosses very close to them too. So I would say that this is not a super hard game. It is certainly hard though. I don't want to say it's not. It is pretty difficult, but very easy to overcome if you just practice, I would say.
Is it procedurally generated, like, or is the map always the same? Like it's
as far as I know,
map.
Yes, as far as I know, it is not procedurally generated. It is, think whatever Metroidvania blah blah blah, right? That you can look at a map for. It looks like that. So you uncover different sections of the map as you play, and they're kind of like clouded out. And then you go back to your cross and you rest, and that stuff appears, right? So now you have uncovered that portion of the map, and you can see like all the different routes that you can take. But I don't know this 110% that it's not procedurally generated, but the map is too intricate that I wouldn't think that it could be, because it seems very tailored and very specific. So
yeah, it doesn't seem like rooms that are just cobbled together from a subset of rooms,
right?
It
like
yes,
Archvale is that way, right? Archvale, every single thing you approach or go through is just another block, right? So you have, here's a room, here's a room, here's a room. Gungeon is that way, right? Where it can be very, here's a room here, here's a room there. They're all pretty samey. This is structured in such a way that it's very fluid and makes sense to be the way it is. And if you look, like everyone listening, go look up Bloody Hell map, and you look at that map, and there's just no way that any AI could be smart enough to make it look like that, in my opinion. So I'm almost positive that it is not procedurally generated. It was tailor-made by the developer to be the way it is. You can find heart containers, and they're not like your typical heart that looks like a Valentine's Day heart. They're actual hearts, like the blood pumping organ. Much of this game, and I was going to get to it a little bit more in presentation, there's blood everywhere. That's why it's called Bloody Hell. There's lots of gore. I mean, if you're sensitive to gore, I think that in general you'll probably be okay because it's very cartoony. But there's a lot of blood symbolism, and that also includes your health, right? It's actual hearts are your health meter. You can find more of them as you find them. Kind of an interesting mechanic. Every time you find a new heart, it's like purple. It almost looks cursed. You have to actually go and power them up with a shop. Different shopkeepers have basically a little symbol that says like, okay, you buy this and that will make that heart usable now. And that's how you power up all your hearts to make them usable in battle. Before that, you're just walking around with dead hearts, basically. They don't do anything until you actually purchase those. There's also a fillable meter in the upper left-hand corner. I think of, and I know we mention it all the time, but I think of Hollow Knight. It's basically a meter that goes up as you do more damage or pick up a collectible as you're moving through the world that also powers it up when you defeat enemies. That is a very repeatable thing that you can pick up. It's just a random drop from certain enemies. But as that goes up, you can utilize it. About a third of it, if it's full, about a third of it can be used to refill 1 heart by concentrating. And if you have that gauge all the way full, there's like a demonic dude that says bloody hell, and you have like an ultimate that you can use, which is pretty neat. So then Az goes like into this black and white slow motion and does like these darts across the screen through whatever enemies you can find, which is really cool. It does crazy amounts of damage and is really good against bosses, but it's very risk reward in that if you use it, your meter is gone. And now if you take a hit or two in the next couple seconds or minutes, you don't have that meter to be able to refill. So you have to be able to think about that before you use it. As I kind of explained already, it's very Gungeon-like in a lot of different ways other than the roguelite part. All the enemies remind me of different Gungeon enemies. The bullet patterns, very similar. You can tell they had some inspirations. And I think a lot of games like this are inspired by Gungeon. Gungeon had its inspirations too, of course, but there's a lot of stuff in here that's pretty similar. I will say, and I didn't play it as long, but some of the tells in this game, in comparison directly to Gungeon, are like way harder to predict. There are certain enemies that shoot out a beam that gives you like a fraction of a second to get out of the way. So you kind of have to be able to learn that that's the enemy that does that, right? You see them on screen, you're like, okay, I know this is coming. I need to get ready to dodge now, right? But I think it lends itself a little bit to this kind of a game. It's a tighter game. It's only, I'll spoil it now. It only took me a little under 4 hours to beat. And there was probably a little bit of idle time in there. So it's a pretty quick game, 3 to 4 hours. So you don't feel like you have to memorize the enemies like you almost have to in games like Gungeon, where it's like the only way that I'm going to make it any further is to memorize this pattern and then overcome it, right? Consistently. You don't feel like that in here. They're pretty easy to learn, but they are still fairly difficult. Same thing goes for the bosses. Pretty fun, cool shot patterns, especially the last couple have really cool shot patterns. Like I said, it's a bullet hell. The bullets fill the screen, and you have to dodge very precisely. Fortunately, about halfway through the game, you have your dash changed into a double dash, so you can press the dash twice, and you have twice as long of invincibility, and you have to be able to utilize that. Like I said, you have shops. You can buy certain blood vials, and you can also buy the pieces that increase your grid to equip the blood vials, and you can buy the power-up heart stuff. So, before I go on to presentation, you guys have any questions about gameplay?
Do you think that everything together creates a great package? Like the music and everything, does it suit the ambience of the blood pouring from every orifice of the game? Is it like metal?
Oh yeah,
it looks like a game like there's metal just raging every second of the game.
Yeah,
is it something like that, or
it's so it's weird actually. It reminds me a little bit of Hades in how the music plays. So in Hades, when you're just traveling through the world, the music is very subtle and in the background and atmospheric, but really ramps up when you get into a big battle or a boss battle, right? Really spikes. And that is how Bloody Hell is. There are actually certain parts where Bloody Hell will put you in a room and will raise these fire pillars around the room that block you in. So now you have to it's almost like a puzzle, because you have all these enemies in this room with you, and you have to figure out how to maneuver around them and kill them. There's no escape route. You can't go back. You have to just figure out how to do it. And in those sections, the music is amazing. It's pure metal, rock
just
on.
melt your face off.
Yes. So, but there is some variability that I'll get to. We'll talk about it right now. You can go back. So you start in heaven. You're given a task by God to go kill Satan. That's everything. God tells you go kill Satan. Okay. And you kind of just fall down a hole and you go travel through hell to try to find Satan and kill him. That's the whole story. It's very second fiddle to the rest of the gameplay, of course, in this kind of game. But I will say it's very worth looking into getting to the end because it's a really cool capper, I would say, on the story. Like it's really fun. It's basic, but that doesn't mean it's not good, right? It's pretty cool. But you were saying, Josh, about the music. It is metal most of the time, but the cool thing is in heaven, there's just like this awesome lo-fi, serene music that I will totally be bringing to an IQ OST in the future. I would just sit. I wouldn't even have anything to do. I would just sit in heaven for a minute or two and listen because it was just such a good tune. And I've actually looked to try to find that OST on YouTube and wherever I could, and it's not up yet, but I did find out that within the next couple of weeks to a month, they're going to release the OST, which is really cool. And I imagine it will be free, right? Because the game is free. So,
well, I see on here on Steam, the contents for this game, like the DLC, is the OST, and then in parentheses, it's $4.79. And if you give them $4.79, and it just says support the devs by buying the soundtrack. So that's how you're gonna do it. Yeah,
100%. I'm buying that sound. That's kind of awesome. I hope that anybody that plays this game and enjoys it will go buy that soundtrack because I cannot understand why this game isn't $10. Like it makes no sense. There's so many games out there that are lesser than this game that are cost obviously more than free, but more than $10 even, right? So,
right. Maybe it's like his first game or their first game, and they're just like, here, let's have a really solid start off, like easy entry. It's free.
Yeah.
Get people to know our name, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I looked up the dev, and I can't see that they made anything else, so that does make sense. Josh, you were trying to describe the graphical style. I think of it as a gory but pretty 16-bit game. That's kind of how it looks to me. Like it's
that works.
Too pretty to be on the Super Nintendo, probably, but when you play it, that's how you feel. That's the kind of game you feel like you're playing, right? So,
nice.
But I think that brings me to my verdict. We kind of got through music there quickly. So, do you guys have any other questions before I throw it on the old quest log?
I will make a comment that for free, I already added it to my Steam library because why not? You at least mess around with it, you know?
Yes.
Like, it looks really cool.
Yeah, even if it's not your jam, it's very worth, and regardless of where I put it on the quest log, it is very worth adding to your library. And if you PC game at all, I would suggest checking it out. But I am going to put Bloody Hell on the main quest.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've been really trying not to gush about it this entire time, but it is so good. It is a really good game. And if you look at Steam, lots of people agree with me. And I'm sure some of that is because it's free, but there are over 1,000 reviews and it's got like a 98% approval. 98%. Yeah. Like that is like Hades. And it's, there's not as many reviews, of course, but it's an incredible game, and on top of the fact that it is free, it does everything as well as I would want any game to do. I don't know. I mean, if you dig this style of game, you need to go play it now. It is that fun. I mean, maybe wait for Halloween. It would be a fun little game to play in October because of all the gore and stuff. But I already had my Halloween game planned out. And I was looking for a short, quick game. And I've been playing a lot of Gungeon. Thanks, Josh, for bringing it up. I've been trying, a little spoiler here, I've been trying to get 100% achievement on Gungeon. And it takes a long time. So I've been putting in some time here and there to do. But I was like, I kind of just want to keep playing Gungeon. But I need to play something else for IndieQuest. And this other game I was playing is going to take too long. Why don't we try that Bloody Hell out? And it was just perfect for that. So
you could pair it up.
Scratch an itch.
Yeah.
You could pair it up with Hades for Halloween. So, and then one
There
game
you
you're
go.
going down into hell, and the other game you're trying to get back out. So
That's right. It's perfect. It's perfect.
it goes
And
both
honestly,
ways.
they're very action, not RPG really, but they both kind of fill that same bucket if that's what you're looking to do. So definitely goes hand in hand, works well. But that was Bloody Hell on the main quest, and now we're going to kick it to the guest of honor, the Burgerchamp, to talk about the game that he brought today.
All right, I brought a game that was made by one guy named Matthias Linda. He apparently spent 7 years working on this game. And he did have some people come in and program and help orchestrate the soundtrack and stuff, but pretty much this was his baby. It's a game called Chained Echoes. It's on Game Pass if you have Game Pass.
Yeah.
It's an RPG. The guy that made it, he was a big fan of old RPGs like Secret of Mana and Suikoden 2 and Breath of Fire and Final Fantasy VI and those kind of early PlayStation, late Super Nintendo turn-based RPGs. And one of the reasons he wanted to make this game is because he found that even though in his mind he loved these games and he could still go back and play them, there were still rough edges and things that were better in his memory than they were in actuality. And he wanted to make a game that was all of those things he remembered, but played out in the modern game. He wanted it to be a game where you felt like you were playing those old games the way they were in your memory rather than playing them now made back then.
Yeah.
So,
and this game looks like what I think Final Fantasy VI looks like, or Chrono Trigger looks like. It has that level of polish that still works for your nostalgia, but makes you think like this, yeah, that's what that looked like, right? But then you go back and try to play one of those games on a CRT, and it's like, oh, this is a lot muddier than I remember it. But this looks crystal clean. And honestly, Burger, I had no idea that this was made by one guy. That's completely stunning. I can't believe that was even possible. It's insane. I mean, I know that he had help, but that's nuts.
Yeah, the whole thing was written by him. The whole thing, all the designs are by him. The music is written by him. He just couldn't play the music,
right?
Arrange it and compose it and all of that. So it is a turn-based RPG, just in the classic style. You have a party of 4, and then you can pair them with 4 other backups that they're paired to in combat, and you can freely switch between the 2 in each pair on that turn if you want to use a turn to switch. So you can throw some healers in the back, let the people in the front take the damage, switch a couple healers in. There's a lot of strategy involved. Similar to Persona, combat is focused a lot on using weaknesses against the enemies, committing status effects on enemies. There are a lot of cool attacks that, like, you can poison one enemy and then you use an attack called Pandemic, and you'll hit that one poisoned enemy and the poison will spread to all the other enemies.
Right.
I will say that it starts off like pretty exciting, and then once you get into, I'll get to the leveling system here in a second. Once you get into the systems proper, it took me a couple hours to really understand how it was going to work. Like, you really got to get a few kind of levels under your belt to really understand how the leveling system works. And how it works is there aren't levels per se. From defeating bosses, from defeating rare creatures, from completing missions and side quests, you'll get stars that you can use to unlock ability slots on like a board. So you have a row of attacks, you have a row of passive abilities, and then you have a row of stat up abilities. Now, the stat up abilities, as soon as you unlock them, you permanently have that stat. The passive abilities, you have 3 slots, and then later you can unlock more slots to have 5 slots for 5 passive abilities, and then you can equip 8 active abilities up front. Like I said, combat is turn-based. It has kind of the Final Fantasy X thing where it shows
turn order.
Yeah, turn order up top. And that can change depending on casting haste or slow or, paralyze, things like that.
I love that.
That's great.
Once RPGs started to do that, I don't know how anybody could ever go backwards from that. It's just so
Right.
useful. Like, why not tell the player that?
And it gives so much strategy because you can be like, oh, I need to target this guy because he's going to attack before the other guy. Yeah. And if I can get rid of him, I can take them back and attack.
Right.
So as you fight these enemies, you get what is called, I think it's SP. And that SP can be gathered up, and then you use it to take each of these active passive traits, and you can level them all up to 3 times. Or 2 times to get to level 3. You will gain natural experience by using those abilities, but you can also use this SP to level those things up to maximum. By the end of the game, you get about 11 party members. So you have 8 that you're actively... Some of them are optional. You can go through the whole game and not get them. There are tanks. There are, people that have lots of group attacks. There are lots of physical attacks, ranged attacks, and enemies have weaknesses to different things. But there's also a second type of combat where 4 of your characters actually get in these giant mechs, like sky armors, like big Gundams, and you go and you fight. So the cool thing about this combat with the mechs is you can shift from first gear to second gear, and then there's a 0 gear, which is neutral. So first gear will do your normal amount of damage. Second gear will lower your defense, but make your attacks much, much more powerful. And then the 0 gear is kind of how you reset, regain magic points, and continue to attack. And so the flow of those battles works very differently than it does in normal combat. The mech suits also, later in the game, become advantageous because you can get into them and fly them around on the world to explore and reach areas that you couldn't formerly access without flying over to them. So it actually expands the scope of where you can explore within the world map and makes it easier to get to certain areas or faster. Enemies are on the map. There's no random encounters, so you can choose to engage or not engage. And running away is a 100% guaranteed proposition.
Oh.
When you die in a battle, you can choose to start from your last save, start from the current battle, which it will open up your menu, let you rearrange things, re-equip things, and then you can go back into that battle again. And there's a third option for you to restart, and I don't remember. What the third one is.
That's the kind of stuff that, in hindsight, right? When a developer gives us those options, you realize that back in the day when they were making these games, them punishing you and making you traverse an entire dungeon again just to get back to that boss, all that ever was just artificial padding, right? It was it was a reason that the developer didn't have to make the boss itself super interesting and fun to retry, because it's like, we're just going to beat you down, then you'll have to learn slowly how to figure this out. And once you get the thing that kills the boss, then you're going to be good. But it might take you 3 tries, and it's also going to take you an hour. So instead of like making the boss varied and interesting, they just artificially ramped it up and then made you smack your head against the wall all the way through the dungeon. That's so annoying in those types of games, but also really cool that developers have figured that out. Right. So,
well, another little twist to the combat that keeps you honest is you have a meter at the top that starts off in yellow, the middle part is green, and then the end part is red. The more attacks you do, it moves that meter forward, and when you're in the middle, the sweet spot, the green spot, you do more damage, you take less damage. But when enemies hit you, it moves it further up the bar. So the only way to move the bar back is to either defend, or sometimes it will randomly highlight an attack that will move that bar backwards. So you're trying to keep in the middle, in the sweet spot, because if you just sit and spam attacks, you're going to hit that end, you're going to take more damage, you're going to do less damage once you get into the red.
Like a heat gauge.
You can't just sit and hit attack. You have to think, oh man, this person's going to have to defend because I got to move that bar back because these guys hit really hard, and so it combines a lot of cool things into combat to make it unique and original. And I'm going to say, I think he really succeeded at making those aspects, combat, character animations. You have ultimate attacks just like you would in a Final Fantasy game that every character has their own animation for. Once you get that meter built up, you can use it. Some people heal, some people give you buffs, some people poison all the enemies. One girl has just a giant sword that comes out of the ground and just hits everybody as it goes. And it really does take you back. He took all the best parts of those RPGs that you liked as a kid and just kind of chopped them apart and condensed them down into this one experience gameplay wise.
It sounds like it really draws a lot of inspirations, right? You were talking about being able to switch party members out. That reminds me of Suikoden. The mech battles and just mechs in general reminds me of Xenogears, right? I do wonder, Burger, because if anyone out there doesn't know already listening to this, Burger doesn't just beat games. He beats them into the ground when he plays them. And oftentimes, if I am recalling correctly, you usually level about as much as you possibly can in these kinds of games and grind your ass off, if I remember correctly. So
yes.
Did you do that in this game, and was it necessary?
It's not super necessary, because if you do everything as you go, by the end you feel pretty powerful. The last boss, and there's also a hidden boss that you can fight at the end, are pretty challenging. I had to fight both of them a few times, and that's with every single ability unlocked except for one, and everybody with all of the ultimate armor, I crafted all the ultimate armor, all the ultimate weapons, everything. This game makes you play at its pace. It makes you engage. If it gets a little hard for you, you can actually, there are settings where you can make the enemies less aggressive. There are things where you can make the stats of the enemies a little lower to make the game easier for you if you need to. Or you can make the stats on the enemies higher, make it harder. You can make the enemies much more aggressive, which makes them attack faster and make the game harder for yourself as well.
Wow.
It's very customizable that way. But since there is no traditional leveling system, it's more about you being judicious with your attacks, figuring out how each character's attack works in unison with another character's attack, and finding that party niche that works perfectly for what engagement you're getting into.
Yeah.
And it's not like one of those games where you're like, all right, I got to do a lot of battle prep. I've got to make sure that this weapon is equipped and this, and it's not quite that granular. You just need to know, okay, now that I'm in this battle, I know they're weak against water. I'm going to switch in all my water people with water attacks. I'm going to have this certain type of healer. We're going to regen on magic points. We're going to, or this person's just going to use items, or this person's just going to defend to keep my meter down because I'm using a lot of heavy hitting attacks that are moving it all forward. It's all about figuring out that almost puzzle-like thing.
So that meter, while we're talking about that is a shared meter.
Yeah, it's for your whole party.
That's cool. Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
Actually, the cool thing about the gears in the giant mech suits is it's red on both ends, and you start in the middle. When you're in gear 1, you move forward. When you're in gear 2, you move backwards. So you can actually have your mechs in different gears, moving that meter backwards and forwards. But if you try and go completely aggro, you'll go in the red. But if you try and play completely defensive, you'll go in the red too. So you got to really mix it up.
Yeah, that's really cool. Honestly, I'm sure there are games that have done something like, of course, there are heat gauges or things like that in a lot of different games, but I feel like it's underutilized in JRPGs, right? Or turn-based RPGs. And I think that's pretty neat.
And look, at the end, when you're fighting trash mobs or something, going back trying to find, each location has buried treasure, has hidden caves. There are tons and tons of hidden monsters that you have to like talk to people and figure out. Oh, I have to take all my armor off and go to this spot, and this enemy will appear. Then I can re-equip myself and I can fight this unique monster, and they'll give me a unique crafting item that I can use to upgrade my ultimate weapon, or that kind of thing. And there are places that you can only explore with your airship that have individual, unique monsters and things. So there's a lot to explore. There's a lot to uncover, a lot to unlock. And it's not even like checklists. It's, and I completely forgot another facet of leveling up. Yeah. You have a board that you can go to that looks a lot like the job board in Final Fantasy 12. It's like a grid with a bunch of squares on it, and each area has squares in there that say like defeat 6 of this specific monster, find all the buried treasure, find this cave, talk to this person, explore most of the map for this area. And every time you do one of those, it will open that square on the grid. And it'll give you a bonus item pack that usually has gold and a few crafting things or a potion or something in that square. The key to it is targeting those squares and trying to create chains. Because when you create chains inside that grid, it unlocks the things that allow you to... there are these statues you can find throughout where if you go in and fight this special battle at the statue, you can actually unlock job classes that give your characters more abilities to use. So you can have a cleric and a summoner and all of these different things, but you need certain items to be able to acquire those. That's how you get those items, is by chaining those combos together inside the grid. And you don't have to get every single one in the grid to get every prize. I think there's 157 things on the grid, and you only need 120 to get all the rewards or whatever. So it's neat to go in there and be like, oh man, I could turn this from a 40 chain into a 47 chain if I get this one in the middle. So I need to go to this area and fight 8 of these mushroom guys, and that'll unlock a whole new chain and get me a whole new prize or whatever. So there's a lot of rewards for exploration. There's a lot of rewards for finding these unique enemies, for doing these dumb little quests and things that you run into. It's really, really rewarding to actually explore the game.
I absolutely adore a good job system. Some of my favorite games have cool jobs. Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy Tactics, things like that. It seems like the developer was like, I enjoy the really good classic JRPGs, and I'm going to put small elements from all of them into this game and then just ramp it up to 11, which is pretty awesome. But something that usually is found in really good JRPGs or classic RPGs are good stories. So, Burger, is the story pretty good in this game?
So the story actually, it uses a lot of things you're familiar with from those RPGs. You have like a character with memory loss, or a character with that has a past where he is, you can tell something shady happened in his past, and he's not necessarily a good guy, and then you find out things about them. So the story in basic terms is about this. You start with this party of people. A tragedy happens many years later, or a year later, or something like that. You move to a completely different group of people, and there's been peace in this world for a while, and you find out that there are people that are more interested in war because, classic story, there's benefits to being rich and at war, and it becomes a lot of power plays. The story is great. The characters are all really, really fleshed out. They all have their own personalities. It's great because since you have everybody in your party all the time, there aren't scenes you can miss out on by being in an area and you don't have that person with you that has like a specific react or something like that. You can always, get the full breadth of everything that you experience.
I hate that about Final Fantasy VI. I know this is I hate that so much. You got to have lock in order to, it's just so annoying.
Yeah, you got to have shadow for this. You got to have realm here for that.
You almost have to follow a guide if you don't want to have to play the game 3 times. But yeah.
But there's it's a story that happens. Then those people that you start with years later connect with the people that you started with. And then it becomes them trying to figure out how to stop this, big bad. And then, trying to unravel what the real story is. Having said that, even though it plays on a lot of tropes from other games, this story surprised me many, many times. It takes a lot of those tropes. It takes a lot of those things that you're familiar with and kind of turns them on their side a lot of times. You really think a story is going this way, and then a character surprises you, or somebody's past surprises you, or you find out this character's somebody that you really didn't think that they were, or they're involved with a character from the past in a way that you didn't think that they were. And when you find out what a chained echo is, it's a really cool part of the story. I really hope he makes another one, because it's not like they left it super open-ended, but they left it at a spot where you really could do more with these characters, with this story, with this world. But everybody's connected really well. Even the side characters, the NPCs. Actually, one of the things I forgot to mention in the mechanics is it has the thing from Suikoden where you're building your own island and you're recruiting people to come and live on your island. You get a shopkeeper. You get a person who can tell fortunes and tell you where hidden items are. They can tell you, you have all these different people, a guy that can mine, a guy that fishes, and every hour he pulls something out of every hour in game, he pulls something out of the lake and gives you the item, for your inventory. Sweet. So there's all these people that you can go and do side missions for to create your own little island and own little community. And that has its own level too. And as you level it up, you get more access to more side quests and more Adventurers Guild quests. And, it opens up the game more and promotes exploring more. But the story is fantastic. The guy writes a ton of puns, and you know how I feel about that. There's a lot of Dragon Quest style pun enemy names, enemy attacks, things like that. And all around, story was really solid.
So sometimes with these kinds of games, if a developer has so many inspirations, which it seems like they did, right? They will try to go in too many different directions and the game will kind of not have an identity. Did you feel that was the way that this game was at all? Or did it just do enough with all of those things to just create a very good experience?
So the first thing that I noticed was in the music, where sometimes I would be like, is that a song from Suikoden? Because it has that style, but it's not a song from Suikoden. But it makes you feel like you're listening to a Suikoden song, or a Final Fantasy VI song, or a Chrono Cross song, or a Chrono Trigger song. And I think he really found a way to take these disparate elements and not copy them. It never felt like he copied something. It felt like he took something and found a way to make you feel the idea of what he remembered from, Xenogears or whatever, and there's so many times that I turned to my wife and I was like, that's a reference to this. That's a reference to this. And he'll directly reference them in things like character names or location names or, something like that. but it'll be like a tongue-in-cheek reference. But I never felt like I was like, well, that's a ripoff of this. I always felt like that's a really cool nod to this or this. And I feel like it does have its own unique identity, that it does take these puzzle pieces and make its own picture instead of just making a montage picture of these other things and just mashing them all together. There's never a character you're going to look at and be like, well, that's just Chrono, but he's in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, that makes sense.
But there's a part in the game where it's like, wake up, and your mom comes in and opens the curtains, and it's just exactly like the beginning of Chrono Trigger,
That's awesome.
So there's a lot of nods. The music is very much like wearing those influences on its sleeve. The music is very good. The battle music is its own unique thing, but as you go to these different regions, you're going to hear it and be like, this is a song. It's not like this is a song that sounds like it's from Suikoden. This is a song that sounds like it was written and performed by the band that made the music for Suikoden. This is another song off a different album by those guys, but it never feels like they're ripping it off. It does have its own unique identity.
It's like someone read 10 books that they love. Since we have Burger on, I'll make a book reference. 10 books that they love, and it's not like they are plagiarizing those books, but everything that they read in those books, they're going to take those and make their own story, right? They left the books on the shelf and they go to and start writing, right? And I think that's what it sounds like he did.
Yeah, it's like putting their inspiration. They wear their inspiration on their sleeve, like the whole game. That's awesome. I think that it's really cool to see somebody go this far into their passion of something, and he's a huge. You can tell the developer's a huge JRPG nerd, and he's making a game for JRPG nerds, right? Pretty much, which is pretty awesome.
And I'll say that this game, you were saying it's a bigger game, but I think that I 100%ed it, got all the achievements, did everything in the game in under 60 hours. Like I did it in about 50 hours. So it's meaty, but it's maybe Super Nintendo meaty. It's not, or PlayStation 1 meaty. It's not like something you're going to throw 125 hours into,
Persona style or something.
Right. Now I will say there are, in one particular part, there are some irritating Sokoban puzzles where you're doing like block sliding puzzles.
Yeah.
They never get super hard, but a couple of them got a little irritating where I had to just do trial and error, to figure it out. But
I think that I have read, I have been interested in this game for quite some time. I've been considering using it for my C game, although I think I'm pivoting out of this game and using another game for my C game for Polykill this year. But I think that How Long to Beat had it at like 30 hours for just trying to beeline it to the end.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. Which, for a fully fleshed out JRPG, like, that's pretty good. That's, maybe a little bit longer than Chrono Trigger, right? Like, that's something that even non-JRPG lovers could sink some time into, I would think.
Yeah, and it's not long enough to wear out its welcome, to where you just feel like you're constantly having to go back and fight menial enemies to accomplish some goal. And they do make it really easy. There are people that you can recruit to your island that the map is broken into screens. It's usually 9 to 12 pieces on a grid per section of the map. And there's a person that you can literally get on your island, and when you go to a new section, there's a little meter in the corner that tells you have 4 treasure chests, 2 buried treasures, and 1 secret cave left to find in this area. So you know exactly what you're looking for inside that area. So he makes it really easy and approachable to want to go back and say, well, I know I'm only looking for 2 treasure chests. Let's get in the mech, fly around and see, if we can find those 2 treasure chests and see where they're hidden and see if we can find the path that gets to them,
So it's not like you're listening to random NPCs give you vague suggestions. and you have to read between the lines to figure out where to go. Like that's
No. And even buried treasure, what they do is they have 2 rings with 3 arrows on them, and somewhere 2 of those arrows intersect from the 2 rings, and that's where the hidden treasure is.
Oh, nice.
So you're even able to follow a path to find those, easily. So
Awesome. Josh, did you have any other questions before Burger throws this on the quest log?
Right. Do you think me, as somebody that only plays an occasional JRPG, if it's streamlined, and you think I would enjoy it if I downloaded it and tried it out on Game Pass?
I think you would. I think there definitely is, after the little introductory area, you really have to get to the point where you have a full not a full party of 8, but a full party of 4, maybe a couple backups, to really feel out how the combat is going to flow, how the switching out works, how the leveling up works. Because when I first started, my wife was playing it ahead of me. And when I first started playing it, I was like, man, this leveling system is just really weird. I feel like I'm not getting ahead. I feel like I'm struggling a lot. And she's like, well, just wait until, because you can only use you have to unlock, I think 5 or 8 abilities before you can unlock the second block of abilities. Just wait until you open up that second block and then see how you feel about it. And it didn't even take until I got to that second block. Once I really understood the combat, I was like, oh, I totally get this. And then I got choosier about what abilities I unlocked when I had the opportunity to do so. And you can change them out. You're not locked into an ability once you unlock it. You can switch out all your abilities anytime you want, So I think you have to get to that point maybe 2 or 3 hours into the game. But once it opens up, once exploration opens up, once you understand the leveling, it flows pretty quickly. It rolls really fast. The story pushes you along really quickly. And even if you didn't want to do any of the side quests, the story itself will push you forward. There's always people telling you where to go. There's always map indicators telling you where your next location is going to be. And then if you decide you do want to do the side quests, then there's map indicators that'll tell you go here to find somebody that'll give you a quest, and you can unlock different things in that way. I do think that this would be a good foot in the door RPG, even though it doesn't have the traditional leveling systems and the traditional, a lot of the systems are untraditional. I think the pieces as a whole make it a worthwhile play for even people who maybe might not be interested in turn-based RPGs.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean,
that's great to hear.
So much of what this game does reminds me, I know it's kind of an amalgamation, right? But my go-to recommendation of people who have never played a JRPG and want to play something, I always recommend Chrono Trigger, because it's so streamlined. There's hardly any grinding, right? Like you can figure it out as you go. And that really, I know it's a different game, but lots of what you've said, Burger, kind of remind me of that. It's ease of access, right? It's going to hold your hand a little bit if you want it to. So,
right, and no 45-minute battles, no, none of that nonsense. And like I said, if you feel like it is too challenging, you can adjust the enemy aggression, you can adjust the enemy stats, and and then you can adjust them back up if you feel like you're just having trouble with this one boss or this one. Yak or whatever, that's attacking you. You can turn it down and make it easier on yourself.
Awesome. Well, where are you going to put it on the quest log, Burger?
Well, this is a really tough decision.
Yeah.
I know it's been pretty ambiguous how I feel about this game. But for me, I think it would go on the main quest because it's so approachable. It's so quick. It moves forward at a steady progress. It's good for people like me who like to go and find every nook and cranny and make sure you have everything before you leave a square. Everything you can access. But it's also good if you just want to kind of let the game lead you along. Level at your own pace, and just get engrossed in the story and the characters and the way they interact with each other. and the highs and lows,
Yeah, that's awesome. I really want to check this game out. I've heard nothing but good things, and hearing it so highly recommended from you makes me want to dig into it even more. So,
yeah, I listening to all the things you just kept saying more things. I'm like, how can this game have all of these things in it? So it's definitely it's on my like I'm gonna throw it on my Xbox, and if I'm in the mood for that, I'm gonna check it out type of game. Like I definitely am more interested. Like I don't think I would even like look its way without hearing all the stuff you've been talking about. So I'm pretty excited to actually give it a go pretty soon. So yeah. So we got 2 games. I guess it's my turn here, huh?
Mm-hmm.
2
to bring a game to the quest log. Yeah.
2 main quest games, Josh. Don't screw it up.
Oh, well, we'll see. Okay. I brought a game called. It's a very small game. You've definitely never heard of it. It's called Hello Goodboy. That's the name of the game. And I would describe this game as a very light and simple adventure game with a wholesome story. And basically the description is like you're a kid that's basically dying, and he is having like final thoughts and being led to like in like this limbo state by this dog named Coco. And pretty much what the gameplay entails, you have 4 options, like 4 seasons you can go to, and you go and interact with the environment. Very simple engagement in the environment, very simple things to interact with. I think the art style is very nice. It's very I would say like think like a children's book, like a gold book. You know what I'm talking about? Something like that. That's very much the vibe for this game. It's very simple, very relaxing. It's very easy to get through. There's no friction. There's no fail states really. But yeah, this game was recommended to me by my partner. They played it. They liked it quite a bit. And they're like, you know what? You should play this and possibly bring it to IndieQuest if you like it enough. And here I am bringing it. I think that what they did with this game, you can tell it's a very small studio. You can tell that it's probably like a team of 2 or 3 people who made it. It's not this 40, 50-hour RPG that's super detailed. But what I will say about it is that from its simplicity, it's something that it would be really nice just to kick back and play. And also, I feel like it'd be a very good game to play if you had a kid and you wanted to kind of broach the idea or subject of like dying, like passing away. And it has some themes around that I think that they touch on it just light enough to where a kid would get a lot out of this game. So.
There it looks like there's a lot of snow. Is it always snowy?
No, so basically you start in like this hallway, and there are 4 seasons that you can pick from. Okay. So you can do summer, spring, summer, fall, autumn, all 4. And to beat the game one time, you basically do 2 of the seasons. And each season takes maybe like 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes, something like that. And pretty much what it entails is you go through the world and you interact with the characters, you help them. There's like this bleak, dark, sludgy stuff all over the world. So say you go into like the snow area and there's trees that are down and there's just bleak sludge all over. You can help the people of that season pick up the logs and cut down the logs. You do like a little like sawing mini game and like a little like drilling mini game where you're just kind of tapping buttons to like the rhythm of the game. And you also help like this little duckling and goose with the sliding block puzzles. And it's very, very light on the gameplay. I really do think it's more of a vibes type of game than a gameplay type game,
It seems like there's a lot of words in all of the screenshots I'm seeing. So it's very much a story-driven game. You said it was light gameplay-wise, but what genre of game would you call this?
I guess I'm kind of all over the place. I would just say it's an adventure game. Like you're not picking up things for your inventory and things like that, but you are just exploring the environment to interact with things to move the story along, pretty much. And I think that from what I played, I played it and enjoyed it, and I think that it's just very simple. Like, I think that would be the way to describe this game. It's like, from the writing, from the gameplay, it's simple, but that's not nothing. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just, hey, I'm gonna just enjoy what this game is trying to tell me about this kid,
So does it hit you in the heartstrings there? Does it make you feel something?
Yeah, I mean, it makes you feel warm and cozy, I would say, and it's such a dark subject matter that they do in such a lighthearted way. Like I said, it really does feel like a fable or a bedtime story or like a fairy tale type storyline.
Yeah, it looks like a storybook. It really looks like a storybook.
It does.
Yeah, it's pretty much the story. Like, if you would imagine like a gold book, like I said, like, those classic storybooks come to life and you can interact with it. There are cutscenes that have even more detail to them. You can tell that I would say loosely cutscenes are kind of like nice stills with some light animation with some talking and things, but you could tell that they're like hand painted, like, you know what I mean, like really detailed and things like that. I think the music is just really, really bright and cheery and nice, and like it moves along pretty well. And it's such a short game too. It's like 3 to 4 hours to get like the real ending. So you have to play it twice. You play 2 seasons, and then there's like this little boss battle that you do with, I guess it's loosely like the Grim Reaper, kind of, right? The evil guy. Like, they call it Black Dog. You're fighting Black Dog, and it's loosely a JRPG fight system for the boss battle, but it's very simple, really easy to do. Like, I don't think you can fail it. I don't think that's the point of it. And then you play the game again, but do the other 2 seasons to unlock the real ending, to see the story of what the kid went through. And it just tells a nice little like simple but heartwarming story.
Does the music change each season? I would really like it if it did. Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Good.
Okay, yeah, you were so serious about that. I was like, okay.
Well, wouldn't it be so weird if I don't feel like it can. And we've talked about this before on IQ OSTs, but you can't play the same song when it's snowing and when the sun is out. It just wouldn't make any sense. Right?
Right. No, it's so we got, like, in the fall, it's gonna feel a little cooler and brisker, and then in the winter it feels wintry. You're gonna hear some jingle bells in the background. The summertime has kind of like an island vibe to it. Each season has its own track. You meet different characters, and then pretty much what that like last battle is. I know it's kind of loose spoilers, but it's worth playing. I would say for get it half off on sale, something like that. I think it'd be worth playing. But when you're fighting the boss at the end, all the people along the way kind of like help you, defeat the big bad. So
the power
that's
of
pretty
love.
much what the.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I know. But yeah, it's just, to me, I enjoyed my time with it. But I would describe this game as something to get a kid or a younger person into video games. That's what I was thinking. That's where this would line with me. I'm not saying it's not super, like, there's not a million mechanics. There's not, like I said, there's no fail states. It's just a nice, heartwarming story. If you're an adult, you're going to enjoy it. But I would say go in with that knowledge. And with that knowledge, I would say this would be a side quest game for me. But yeah, that's about it. It's a nice, simple thing. You talk to a good boy. That the name of the thing, is pretty accurate. You get to pet the dog anytime you want. You have a little dog companion with you, and he's or she. It's kind of vague if it's a boy or girl dog, but the dog will talk to you and lead you to the afterlife. So I just think it was a cute and heartwarming thing. And I really enjoyed playing it. It's just, it was nice, you know?
From the screenshots I see, it looks like a better version of like some of these iPad games that are for kids that are kind of like mini game collections. But this one seems like it has emotional maturity, and it's trying to teach like a lesson about emotional maturity. It's nice to see games like that. And there's a game on Game Pass my kid played called Rainbow Billy that's about, you know, emotional maturity and getting over yourself and, you know, helping people. The combat in that one is therapy rather than actual combat. You actually give therapy to the characters that are mad and have them talk about their feelings. So it's nice to see like another game that is not just a collection of mini games. It's a way to present an idea emotionally to your children and kind of maybe get a conversation started, you know?
Yeah, and I think that would be perfect for something like that. So there are like little dialogue tree options. They're very like, so say there's a granny who you need to help her bake a stew, or not bake, like cook a stew. You could either say, oh, I'm going to help you out, or no, I'm not going to help you. And if you help her out, you get like these like gem orbs that you absorb, and which helps with the final boss. And I'm guessing if you don't have enough of those, you can't beat the final boss. But usually I was like, well, I want to interact with this part of the game, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it, you know. But if you were a kid, you might say, no, I'm not going to do that. And then maybe at the end, it's like all the things that you didn't help out with all the characters, you wouldn't have enough power or whatever to defeat this horrible demon or whatever, you know. But it's very, I don't know. I like I said, I don't think it's supposed to be challenging in any respect. I think it's just supposed to, like you said, just introduce children, or, you know, if you're an adult playing it like me, just have something that, you know, it's kind of nice and cozy that you can just kind of play and just have a nice time with, you know?
Yeah. A nice feel-good story. We could all use
Yes,
one
sir.
of those every once in a while.
And I mean, I was like, you know, I'll try it out, you know, and if I didn't enjoy it enough to bring it, I wouldn't have, you know, to the show. Yeah. I feel like I'm struggling to describe this one, but that's okay.
No, you did fantastic,
but anyway,
Josh.
I mean, it's kind of weird to follow like this game that has like a million elements, and I'm like, yeah, there's a simple game that has like 4 things, you know? Yeah, that's
so
it.
my game has a dog in it. All right, so that was IndieQuest.
Pretty much.
Yeah. One thing about Chained Echoes, you can pet every animal you come across, every cat, every dog you can come across.
Really?
Oh, okay, awesome. So. Already, that sounds like a better game. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No. All right, so we had 2 main quests. We got, what was yours called again, Seth?
Bloody Hell.
Completely spaced on it. Bloody Hell,
Very
that's
generic,
a good name.
But
Chained,
yeah.
Yeah, and then Chained Echoes, another main quest game, and then Hello Goodboy, a side quest game. I feel like we had a decent variety today of games.
Yeah, we had action, we had RPG, and we had a storybook adventure, which was pretty cool.
So I think that's about it for the show today. We can round it out with some plugs. I'll go ahead and let Burger. Where can they find you on the internet? Where can they interact with you?
I am in the Polymedia Discord. I'm in a few Discords, but Polymedia is my main Discord that I spend the most time in. I have some writings on polymedia.com.
Yeah.
Is that the website? Yeah.
Yep.
I have some writings mostly about books, book recommendations on there. I should get started on another one here soon since we're close to the middle of the year. Let's see. I'm at 77 books right now. So maybe when I get through the first... Well, no, I'm past the halfway point. 75. So maybe out of the first 75, I'll do a write-up on that soon. But go to polymedia.com and see if I kept myself honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of all that, in case Burger's hints didn't let everybody know, Burger really likes to read. And when he's saying 77, 75, that's how many books in 2023 Burger has read so far. 77 books. So, incredible stuff.
Awesome. So Seth, while you're talking, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at Captain Drachma on Twitter, and of course, as Burger mentioned, in the Polymedia Discord, best place on the internet. Josh, where can they find you and IndieQuest?
You can find me at Frantic Society on Twitter. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but you would want to find IndieQuest at IndieQuestPod on Twitter. And also, if you see any awesome indie games that got announced that you're excited for, let us know over there on the Twitters, or on the Discord, like you guys were mentioning, or send us an email at indiequestpod@gmail.com, and we will likely read it on the show. I would say we will read it on the show as long as you're not rude or offensive. So, all right. Burgerchamp, you are a fan of the Polymedia Network. What is one of the podcasts you'd like to shout out from the network?
Well, I probably should recommend the newest addition to the Polymedia family, because if it ever gets edited, I'm on an upcoming episode.
I thought so. Based on the hints, I was like, oh, that's got to be Burger.
Of that show, which may or may not be posted by the time this episode comes out. I have no control over that, but that's with our friends Dylan and Mook, and they talk about horror movies, and we talked about horror musicals in
nice.
that episode. It was a lot of fun. We had a really great discussion about 2 movies. Had a really good time.
Cool. I'm not sure that you mentioned the show's title. I can't remember hearing it while we were
Split Up.
Yeah, I said it. It's split
Split
up.
Up. Oh, you
I
did
said
say Split
Heads
Up?
Up.
Okay.
I don't know why I said Heads Up. It's Split Up.
Oh, okay. Split Up. Perfect.
Split Up.
Awesome. You can check out Polykill, which is basically one of the first, or basically the progenitor of the network, right? We got Steve back, which is awesome. So go ahead and jump over there, listen to a podcast all about beating video games. You know, it's always a good time over there. Hear them, just chit-chatting. And just throw a show out there. What show should they check out? What should they throw into their podcast queue?
I would recommend everyone go check out Tales of the Lesser Medium. Caleb and Trav talking about Shenmue recently, and the first episode is hilarious. I've gotten about halfway through the second episode. Tales is always like my outside chores mowing podcast because it's long and I can focus on the story aspect, right? So that's when I always listen to that podcast. But the first episode, I was dying.
This whole Shenmue trilogy has maybe been my favorite.
Yeah,
my favorite run of the whole series. It's fantastic.
It is. It's so much of the story itself lends itself to be made fun of because it's so ridiculous, and yeah, it's just an easy target for that. And also, Caleb and Trav have been doing it for a while, right? And they really are clicking.
They dialed it in, yeah.
Yes. So
yeah, awesome. All that and more at polymedianetwork.com. So I think that's all the plugs. And I like to shoot it over to our guest for just a nice, just anything you want the audience to leave on a nice parting thought. So what you got for us today, Burger?
Pet all the dogs and all the cats in the games and in real life. Don't even ask. Just go and pet them all.
If they look a little bit bitey, I would probably ask first, but yeah.
If they look bitey, hug them. Just hug them from behind.
See you, everybody.
See ya.